Everyone who has ever known an INFJ believes they know them well. The warmth, the depth, the way they listen like no one else listens, the quiet wisdom that seems to arrive without effort. Carl Jung spent decades sitting across from people exactly like this, and he came to believe something that almost no one who writes about this personality type has ever said directly. He believed the warmth was real, but he also believed it was a room with a closed door behind it. And what was behind that door, what he documented carefully, cautiously over years of clinical observation, is something most people who love an INFJ will never be shown. Today, we open that door. I want to be precise about what this video is and isn't. This is not about INFJs lying to people. It is not about manipulation or deception or some sinister double life. What Jung observed was something more structural than that, and in a way more poignant. He believed the INFJ carries an entire dimension of themselves that operates on principles fundamentally different from the dimension everyone else gets to see. Not hidden out of malice, hidden because it has nowhere safe to go. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what that hidden dimension contains, why Jung believed almost no one ever sees it, and, if you are an INFJ, what it might mean to finally let someone in. Stay with me. Before we go into the hidden dimension, it matters that we honor what is visible because Jung never dismissed it as false. The INFJ that most people meet is genuinely warm, genuinely perceptive, genuinely invested in the well-being of the people in front of them. This is the function Jung called extroverted feeling operating in its natural direction, outward, toward harmony, toward the emotional comfort of others. It is not a performance. It is one true half of who they are. People who know an INFJ describe a quality of attention that feels almost unprecedented. Being truly heard for perhaps the first time, being understood without having to over-explain. This is the front of the house, lit, warm, open to guests, and Jung's observation, the one that would eventually trouble him in the way certain clinical patterns troubled him, was that almost everyone stops there. Almost no one asks what is behind it. Because the INFJ, with remarkable consistency, makes sure no one has to. Jung used a phrase in his clinical notes that he rarely applied with such specificity to any other type. He called it the unseen interior. And he meant something quite different from the shadow, quite different from the persona, quite different from any of his more famous concepts. He meant the entire emotional and intellectual life of the INFJ that operates only in private thoughts that are never voiced, reactions that are fully felt and never shown, judgments, sharp, clear, sometimes severe, that exist in complete detail internally and almost never surface externally. This is not duplicity. Jung was emphatic about that distinction. It is instead the natural consequence of a psyche built with introverted intuition as its dominant function, perception that processes everything internally, completely, before any of it reaches the surface, paired with an extroverted feeling function whose entire purpose is to protect harmony and avoid unnecessary disruption to the people around them. The combination produces something Jung found genuinely remarkable. A person who perceives almost everything and discloses almost nothing of that perception, unless they have decided, carefully, deliberately, that disclosure will serve something more than their own honesty. Which means the INFJ you know has an entire evaluation of you, formed, complete, detailed, that you have likely never heard. So what is actually in this hidden room? What did Jung find when he managed, across years of careful clinical work, to get a genuine look inside? He found judgment far sharper than the exterior suggests. The INFJ's gentle exterior often leads people to assume a corresponding gentleness of opinion. Jung found the opposite. Internally, INFJs frequently hold assessments of people and situations that are exacting, specific, and almost merciless in their clarity. Assessments they have decided, almost always, not to share, because sharing them would cost more than the relationship could absorb. He found desire that is far more specific and demanding than the accommodating exterior implies. The INFJ, who appears endlessly flexible, endlessly willing to adjust to others' needs, often carries an interior landscape of wants about their life, their work, their relationships that is precise, strongly felt, and rarely voiced because voicing it would require a kind of conflict the exterior self is built to avoid. He found grief that has never been fully processed because it has never been fully witnessed. Jung observed that INFJs are remarkably skilled at holding space for other people's pain and remarkably unpracticed at having their own pain held in return. The result, over years, is an accumulation of unwitnessed grief, not catastrophic, not dramatic, but steadily collecting in the hidden room because the visible self has rarely, if ever, asked anyone to witness it. And he found, this is the one he wrote about most carefully, a complete, fully formed sense of self that bears almost no resemblance to the accommodating, gentle, endlessly understanding figure the world has come to expect. A self that is, in private, opinionated, demanding, occasionally ruthless in its clarity, far stranger and far more particular than anything the visible self has ever revealed. This is the hidden side, not sinister, not false, simply unmet. Jung offered a specific explanation for why this hidden dimension remains so reliably concealed, and it is more precise than the general assumption that INFJs are simply private people. He observed that the INFJ's extroverted feeling function operates with an almost predictive sensitivity to relational cost. Before the hidden material is even close to the surface, this function has already calculated instantaneously, almost unconsciously, what its disclosure would cost: the relationship, the room, the moment. And in the vast majority of cases, the calculation returns the same answer: not worth it. This means the hidden dimension is not withheld through a single conscious decision in any given conversation. It is withheld through a continuous, largely automatic filtering process that happens so fast and so consistently that the INFJ themselves often loses track of how much is being filtered. Jung found this troubling for a specific reason. He believed that a psychological function exercised this constantly. This automatically eventually operates beneath conscious choice. The INFJ stops actively deciding to hide the interior. The hiding becomes the default setting. And a default setting, by definition, is not a choice being made. It is a choice that was made once, long ago, and has never been revisited. Jung's concern about the hidden dimension was not moral. He did not believe the INFJ owed anyone unrestricted access to their interior. His concern was about a specific cost that accumulates when the hidden room remains permanently sealed, even from the people closest to the INFJ. He called it the loneliness of being well-liked. It is a particular kind of isolation, not the isolation of being unwanted. INFJs are, almost without exception, deeply valued by the people in their lives. It is the isolation of being valued for a version of yourself that is real but partial. The INFJ who maintains this division indefinitely experiences something Jung described with unusual emotional directness for a clinician: the specific grief of being surrounded by people who care for them, and being nonetheless entirely alone in the room that matters most. This is why so many INFJs report feeling, even in their closest relationships, a persistent undercurrent of loneliness they cannot fully explain. The people around them are not failing them. The people around them simply have never been shown the room where the explanation lives. Jung's observation was not a condemnation of the INFJ's caution. It was a quiet, careful argument that the cost of permanent concealment is higher than most INFJs realize, because it is paid not in dramatic moments, but in the slow accumulation of years spent being known only partially by everyone who loves them. Jung was not advocating for the INFJ to throw open the hidden room to everyone, indiscriminately, all at once. He understood the function too well to prescribe something that contradicted its basic architecture. What he believed mattered. What he returned to again and again in his clinical notes about this type was the deliberate, conscious choice to open one window, not the whole room. One small, specific aperture offered to one specific person in one specific moment by choice rather than by accident or collapse. This might look like sharing one honest reaction instead of the filtered version, voicing one specific desire instead of accommodating once in a moment where accommodation was the automatic response, allowing one piece of unwitnessed grief to finally be witnessed, not performed, not explained at length, simply named once to someone capable of receiving it. Jung believed that the hidden room does not need to become public to stop being a source of loneliness. It needs, at minimum, one window. One place where the interior and the exterior touch, even briefly, even imperfectly, so that the person living inside both rooms is not finally entirely alone in either one. If you are an INFJ watching this, and something in the last 11 minutes felt less like a description of a type and more like a description of a room you have lived inside for years, I want to say something gently but clearly. Jung did not believe the hidden side made you less lovable. He believed it made you simply unfinished in the eyes of everyone who loves you. Not because you are incomplete, but because they have only ever met part of what is complete. The warmth they see is real. It was never the whole truth. And the whole truth does not need an audience. It needs one window, one person, one moment of letting the light move in both directions. Go to the comments and finish this sentence. The thing about me that almost no one has ever seen is, you don't have to explain it, you don't have to justify it, just name it once. To strangers, if nowhere else feels safe yet. Because Jung believed that the first window is always the hardest one to open, and the easiest one to open again once you have. I'll see you in the next one.